المشيحي برئاسة المجلس البلدي لمدينة بيروت.
Good afternoon. You're watching the English newscast on Future Television. I'm Yumna Naufal, and these are today's top stories. On the occasion of Easter Sunday, Archbishop Elias Saoudi condemns rampant state corruption and calls on officials to quickly elect a head of state. The United States demands that Syrian President Bashar al-Assad's forces end strikes on Aleppo and restore a nationwide ceasefire. A car bomb hits the Turkish city of Gaziantep, a major refugee hub near the Syrian border in Turkey, killing at least 2 and wounding 22 others. Orthodox Christians across Lebanon celebrate Easter today, a day after the holy fire was ignited at the Church of the Holy Sepulchre in Jerusalem. People celebrating the occasion gathered at the St. George Orthodox Cathedral in downtown Beirut's Nijmeh Square for a mass, as worshippers across the country also participated in mass at their local churches. Archbishop Elias Saoudi condemned the rampant state corruption and scandals which have surfaced in recent months, calling on officials to quickly elect a head of state so as to save the country from falling into more chaos. While Roman Catholics and Protestants mark Easter in March, in accordance with the Gregorian calendar, Eastern Orthodox churches celebrate Easter this week using the older Julian calendar. Head of the Future Bloc MP Fouad Senoura is blaming Hezbollah's meddling in Lebanese affairs at Iran's bidding, and he's saying that it has turned the country into chaos. He told the pan-Arab daily Sharq al-Awsat that the ongoing vacuum in the presidency has created a huge void and allowed Iran's ties with Hezbollah to tarnish Lebanon's relations with Arab countries, especially Saudi Arabia. He also called on Tehran to distance itself from interfering in the internal affairs of Arab countries. Iran's systematic intervention in Lebanon through Hezbollah has caused the state to lose the ability to build its institutions in a responsible manner, the former premier stressed, adding that Lebanon has been without a president since the term of Michel Sleiman ended in May 2014 without the election of a successor. Hezbollah earlier this year said it would boycott the presidential elections until it receives guarantees that its candidate, the Change and Reform Bloc chief MP Michel Aoun, is elected as president. UN Special Coordinator for Lebanon, Sigrid Kaag, has discussed with top Russian official Lebanon's political crisis and developments in the region. Her press office released a statement earlier today saying Kaag had met in Moscow with Deputy Foreign Minister Mikhail Bogdanov and other senior Russian officials. Discussions focused on the developments in Lebanon and the region and their impact on the country's stability and security. Kaag underscored the need to achieve progress on the implementation of Security Council Resolution 1701, where Lebanon has been without a president for 2 years now, and the vacuum at the Babda Palace has paralyzed state institutions, namely the parliament. Kaag's visit to Moscow is part of her ongoing consultations with key stakeholders on Lebanon's stability. A dual Syrian-Australian national suspected of belonging to Daesh was arrested in the North Lebanon city of Tripoli after a car chase with authorities. Intelligence in Tripoli had received information days ago that a Daesh suspect named Mark Maximus had come into the city, as well as information about his vehicle. Authorities eventually were able to arrest the Syrian-Australian national and confirm his identity. A security source told the Daily Star that Maximus is affiliated to Daesh and had entered Tripoli around a week ago to prepare for an attack, adding that authorities are still pursuing another woman in the city who is suspected of working with the militant group. The United States is demanding that Syrian President Bashar al-Assad's forces halt their bombardment of Aleppo and help restore a nationwide ceasefire, with Secretary of State John Kerry due to head to Geneva for talks on the conflict. This comes as terrified residents flee as a new wave of airstrikes hits rebel-held areas of the divided city. Syria's main backer, Russia, rejected calls to rein in its ally. And Kerry expressed deep concern about Aleppo and also made it clear that ending the violence there and returning ultimately to a durable nationwide cessation is a top priority. Qatar also, meanwhile, called for an emergency Arab League meeting, and Saudi Arabia condemned the regime strikes. At least 250 civilians have died in shelling, rocket fire, and airstrikes in both sides of the city since April 22nd. Coming up next, U.S. President Barack Obama takes a swipe at Donald Trump at the annual White House Correspondents' Dinner. Stay with us. We'll be right back. Welcome back. You're watching the 1620 o'clock news on Future Television. A car bomb hit the Turkish city of Gaziantep, a major refugee hub near the Syrian border in Turkey, killing at least 2 policemen and wounding 22 other people, with the country on edge after a succession of militant attacks. In a separate attack in the province of Mardin to the east, 3 Turkish soldiers died in an ambush by Kurdish militants who have killed hundreds of members of the security forces in a renewed insurgency since last year. Television pictures showed chaotic scenes outside the imposing police headquarters in Gaziantep as ambulances rushed to help wounded people lying on the ground. One of the main cities of Turkey's southeast, Gaziantep is a population of around 1.5 million people and is an important center for refugees who have fled the war in neighboring Syria. The attack comes with Turkey on edge after 2 deadly attacks in Istanbul this year blamed on Daesh, and a pair of attacks in Ankara that were claimed by Kurdish militants and killed dozens. 4 Yemeni guards were killed in a bombing that targeted the convoy of Aden's police chief. Officials are saying the second such attack on him in a southern city this week. A bomb-laden car in Aden's Mansoura district exploded as a general's convoy passed, damaging military vehicles and prompting clashes between his guards and al-Qaeda suspects in the area. There was no immediate claim of responsibility for the bombing, but the general survived attacks by extremists more than once, the last of which was just days ago. Other security officials in Aden, the temporary base of Yemen's Saudi-backed government, have been targeted by bombings and assassinations, some of which Daesh or al-Qaeda have claimed. Thousands of protesters are inside Baghdad's green zone after breaking into the fortified area and storming parliament, as Iraq's premier is calling for rioters to be pursued and punished. Demonstrators managed to pull down a heavy concrete blast wall to enter the fortified area, where Iraq's main government institutions are located, the culmination of weeks of political turmoil and inaction by its parliament. Now, while there is still the potential for escalation, the situation remained relatively calm, with protesters touring the area and taking photos of places they have rarely, if ever, been able to access. Prime Minister Haider al-Abadi's office said he had ordered the pursuit of people involved in attacks or vandalism, but security forces were not taking action against protesters inside the green zone. An art gallery in Dubai is featuring a campaign to abolish honor crimes in the Arab world. Co-director of the Abolish campaign, Al-Anud Al-Sharikh, expresses how they aim to raise awareness in the Arab world through showcasing art pieces in a cultural and gentle fashion. She says that this is more than just changing 1 or 2 laws, but about changing society's perspective and views towards women and violence. She also added that it is unacceptable that there is a law permitting the killing of women, mothers, sisters, daughters, and wives. The gallery features various pieces by women activists, shedding light on a rather sensitive yet politically and culturally topic that one visitor stressed leads to the destruction of families in society. France is bracing for violence at May Day rallies today, where workers gather to demonstrate labor reforms, while similar feelers send tens of thousands into the streets of South Korea. From Moscow to Marseille, protests are expected in cities across the globe to celebrate Labor Day this May 1st, as the working classes are battling economic crises and unemployment that have fueled anti-government sentiment. France is on high alert after protests against planned labor reforms this week descended into chaos, with scenes of burning cars and stone-throwing protesters who injured dozens of policemen in Paris. France's prime minister is warning groups of troublemakers known as casseurs or breakers, deeming the attacks unacceptable. Planned labor reforms have also sparked anger among workers in South Korea, where activists and unionized workers chant against the evil bill in Seoul Plaza in front of City Hall. U.S. President Barack Obama added comedian to his resume for a final time as he drew big laughs in his last appearance at the annual White House Correspondents' Dinner, a night of playful ribbing of both politicians and the news media. The president also gave a shout out to Democratic presidential candidate Bernie Sanders, who was in the audience. and suggested that by this time next year there would be the first ever female U.S. president delivering remarks at the dinner. Obama also joked that his departure from the White House was being met with less formality after meeting Britain's young Prince George while on a recent visit in England.
We've got the bright new face of the Democratic Party here tonight, Mr. Bernie Sanders. There he is. Next year at this time, someone else will be standing here in this very spot, and it's anyone's guess who she will be. But leaders, they've been looking ahead, anticipating my departure. Last week, Prince George showed up to our meeting in his bathrobe. That was a slap in the face. On a more serious note, I want to thank the Washington Press Corps. I want to thank Carol for all that you do. You know, the free press is central to our democracy, and nah, I'm just kidding. You know I've got to talk about Trump. Come on. Although I am a little hurt that he's not here tonight. We had so much fun the last time. And it is surprising. You've got a room full of reporters, celebrities, cameras, and he says no. Is this dinner too tacky for the Donald? What could he possibly be doing instead? Is he at home eating a Trump steak? Tweeting out insults to Angela Merkel? What's he doing? Last time this year we spoke of Jason's courage as he endured the isolation of an Iranian prison. This year we see that courage in the flesh, and it's a living testament to the very idea of a free press, and a reminder of the rising level of danger and political intimidation and physical threats faced by reporters overseas. I can make this commitment that as long as I hold this office, my administration will continue to fight for the release of American journalists held against their will, and we will not stop until they see the same freedom as Jason had. And with that, I just have two more words to say. Obama out.
Marks the end of our bulletin for today. Now for a reminder of our top stories. On the occasion of Easter Sunday, Archbishop Ilyas Aude condemns rampant state corruption and calls on officials to quickly elect a president. The United States demands that Bashar Assad's forces end strikes on Aleppo and Syria and help restore a nationwide ceasefire. And a car bomb hits the Turkish city of Gaziantep, a major refugee hub near the Syrian border, killing 2 and wounding at least 22 others. Those are your Sunday headlines live on Future Television. Happy Easter to those celebrating, and have a good night.
بترشيحي لرئاسة المجلس البلدي لمدينة بيروت.